A school janitor watched helplessly as his son was dragged out of class in front of his friends, just a week before final exams. The principal smirked, saying the boy's presence was a distraction, as if poverty was contagious. The boy clutched his torn backpack, tears brimming, while his father begged quietly. No one helped. No one spoke. But the very next day, the roar of helicopter blades silenced the campus, and the truth that followed shattered every smug smile. Comment below where in the world you are watching from. Your support means everything. The morning began like any other in Maple Creek, a modest town nestled between quiet hills and long-forgotten streets. Samuel, a quiet boy of 16, walked beside his father, clutching his schoolbooks like precious treasure. His father, Mr. Jacobs, was the school's janitor, waking before dawn every day to scrub floors others walked on without a glance. Samuel never complained. He sat in the front row, answered every question, and even stayed late helping teachers stack chairs. But in the eyes of some, being the janitor's son was unforgivable. That day, as first bell rang, Samuel stepped into class only to find Principal Hargrove waiting with a clipboard and 2 security guards. "You do not belong here anymore," he said coldly. "Students need better influences." Samuel blinked. "Sir, I have finals. I have perfect attendance." "You are dismissed," Hargrove cut in, and the guards pulled him away. His classmates sat frozen. No one dared speak. One girl looked down, ashamed. A boy clenched his fists. But no one moved. Outside, Mr. Jacobs rushed over, face pale, voice trembling. "Please, sir. Let him finish the year. He's top of his class. You clean toilets, Jacobs. That's your place. Not raising a student to dream above his station." The gates closed behind them. But just 24 hours later, as students filled the courtyard for morning assembly, a distant thudding sound echoed across the sky. Heads turned. Teachers squinted. And from behind the gym roof, a sleek black helicopter roared into view, heading straight for the school. Gasps spread like wildfire through the courtyard. The helicopter descended slowly, its polished surface gleaming under the morning sun. Every teacher, every student, even Principal Hargrove, froze as dust swirled around them. No one had ever seen anything like it in Maple Creek. The rotors finally slowed, and from the side door stepped a man in a charcoal suit, flanked by 2 assistants and a woman holding a thick leather folder. Principal Hargrove forced a stiff smile. "Is this a government visit?" The man ignored him. He glanced around until his eyes locked on Mr. Jacobs, who had returned to the school gates hoping someone would listen to his son's plea. The suited man strode forward with calm authority. "You must be Mr. Jacobs." The janitor nodded cautiously. "Yes, sir. How can I help?" The man extended a hand. "Actually, I am here to help you. My name is Marcus Ellington. I represent the Ellington Foundation. Your son saved my sister's life 2 years ago. He gave her his jacket in the snow when no one else stopped. She never forgot." Mr. Jacobs blinked, stunned. I remember." She looked lost. Marcus smiled. "She was. And now, I am here to repay that debt." Everyone stood in silence, listening. Students edged closer. Teachers whispered behind cupped hands. Marcus turned to the stunned crowd. "We are establishing a full-ride scholarship in Samuel's name for students from families who work hard but are overlooked. And today, Samuel begins studies at Westwell Academy, America's top prep school. A private jet is waiting." A thunderous silence followed. Then murmurs. Then tears from some students who finally understood what kindness looked like. Principal Hargrove took a nervous step forward. "Wait, there must be some process. He is still enrolled here." Marcus looked at him, calm but piercing. "Not anymore." As the helicopter's blades began to spin once more, Samuel stepped out from the back, dressed in a new uniform, standing tall. And this time, the crowd erupted in applause. Samuel stood at the edge of the helicopter platform, his eyes sweeping across the stunned faces of the students who had once ignored him, the teachers who had looked through him, and the principal who had humiliated his father. The applause echoed, but so did the silence of those who had watched him be dragged away just yesterday. His heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something deeper. He was not just returning. He was rising. He took a deep breath and stepped down, walking with quiet strength beside Mr. Ellington. The students parted like waves, unsure whether to cheer louder or lower their heads. A group of boys who used to laugh at his hand-me-down shoes stared at the polished leather ones he now wore. A girl who once whispered about his janitor blood looked away, suddenly ashamed. Mr. Jacobs walked behind his son, holding his tool belt. His hands were rough, his clothes still stained with a morning's work. But his eyes, they were glowing. Principal Hargrove cleared his throat, forcing a weak chuckle. "Samuel, we hope you understand yesterday's actions were misunderstood policy." Samuel turned slowly. "You called my presence a distraction. You called my father's work shameful." Hargrove opened his mouth, but Marcus Ellington stepped between them. "You see, the thing about people like Samuel is, no matter how many walls are put up, they find a way to climb." Then, from the leather folder, the woman pulled out a document. Marcus handed it to Mr. Jacobs. "This is the deed to your house, Mr. Jacobs. Paid in full by the foundation. And a new job offer, head of facilities at Westwell Academy, with full benefits and housing." Mr. Jacobs stared at the paper as if it might vanish. Samuel whispered, "Dad, is this real?" He nodded slowly, his voice cracking. "It is now." The crowd watched as father and son hugged tightly, two men once invisible, now unforgettable. And above them, the helicopter blades spun again, ready to lift them to the life they had always deserved. As the helicopter began to rise once more, students watched in silence, some with awe, others with guilt tightening in their chests. Samuel held his father's hand as they climbed aboard. For the first time, he was not looking back with sadness, but with purpose.
His story had changed.
But more importantly, he had changed with it. Back on the ground, Principal Hargrove stood stiff, face pale. A teacher leaned over and whispered, "You just made the news, sir." And not in a good way. Within hours, a video of the helicopter landing went viral. The headline read, "Janitor's son kicked out before exams. Next day, billionaire arrives with helicopter and justice." The comment sections exploded. "This broke me." The dad's face at the end? "I'm crying. Where do I sign up for this school?" Inside the chopper, Samuel watched the town fade beneath him. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Mr. Ellington smiled.
Now?
"Now you learn.
You grow.
You change the world like you changed ours." Mr. Jacobs sat beside his son, still gripping the job offer. "They said you did not belong, but they forgot one thing. You do not need permission to rise." Samuel looked down at his hands, once calloused from helping his father clean floors after school. Now they were ready to build something new. His past was not erased. It was honored. Every mop, every missed field trip, every cruel word had led to this moment, not of revenge, but of redemption. The flight was quiet, but it was the sound of freedom. Below, back in Maple Creek, a girl named Ava, Samuel's old seatmate, walked home in tears. She had seen the moment his eyes met hers before leaving. He had not glared. He had simply forgiven. And sometimes, forgiveness is louder than any insult ever shouted. That night, the principal's office phone rang endlessly with complaints. Parents demanded change. Teachers resigned in shame. But the boy they tried to silence? He was already soaring. 2 weeks later, Samuel stood at the gates of Westwell Academy, a campus so vast it looked like a university. Manicured lawns stretched endlessly. Classical music floated from windows. Students in crisp uniforms strolled with confidence. Yet none of it made Samuel feel small. Not anymore. He clutched his new books, heart pounding. But instead of fear, it was anticipation. He belonged here, not because of money or connections, but because he had earned it. His father now wore a clean uniform that read Head of Facilities. Staff greeted him with respect, not pity. Mr. Jacobs still rose before dawn, but now he walked with his head high. Samuel's first class was literature. As he stepped in, The professor glanced up. Ah, the scholar from Maple Creek. We were told to expect great things. Some students turned. A few raised eyebrows. But no one laughed. Samuel took his seat near the front again, right where he belonged. That night, as he walked through the library's massive wooden halls, he paused by a glass display case. Inside, a photo had been placed that morning, his photo. Below it, an engraved plaque read, Samuel Jacobs, proof that character outshines circumstance. Tears welled in his eyes. He whispered, "Thank you," though he was not sure if he was thanking his father, Mr. Ellington, or the quiet strength that had carried him this far. Meanwhile, back in Maple Creek, change had begun. Students questioned policies. Teachers reevaluated their choices. One girl wrote an essay titled, "I Sat Still When I Should Have Stood," and submitted it to the school paper. Samuel's story had not just lifted him. It had shaken the ground beneath those who thought status meant superiority. And as he climbed into bed that night, under sheets that smelled of lavender and safety, he knew the truth. They tried to write him off. Instead, they wrote his beginning. Spring turned to summer, and Samuel thrived. His grades stayed at the top of the class. He joined the debate team, surprising even himself with how confidently he now spoke. Every time he stood behind the podium, he remembered the silence he endured back in Maple Creek. That silence had shaped his voice, not softened it. One afternoon, Westwell Academy hosted its annual Voices of Change Summit. It was an event where students shared personal stories that shaped who they were. When Samuel's name was announced as the closing speaker, murmurs filled the hall. He walked to the stage with calm grace. Hundreds of students, teachers, and special guests watched as he adjusted the microphone. He took a breath. There was a time I was told I was a distraction, that I did not belong in a classroom. I remember the feeling of being dragged out, the silence from classmates I thought were friends, and the look in my father's eyes, one of defeat and apology, even though he did nothing wrong. The hall fell completely still. But that same father, who scrubbed floors and mopped up after others, stood taller than any man I know. Because when the world pushed me down, he never let me believe I was less.
A pause.
I was not supposed to make it here, but I did. Not because someone handed it to me, but because someone believed in kindness. One act, 2 winters ago, when I gave my coat to a stranger, and today, I am living a life I never imagined. Tears filled more than a few eyes. Samuel looked up, voice steady. Never underestimate someone because of where they come from. Because sometimes, the ones you overlook are the ones who will rise the highest. The audience stood, clapping as if they were trying to make the walls shake. And backstage, Mr. Jacobs watched, his eyes glassy, a hand pressed to his heart. That night, the school uploaded Samuel's speech. By morning, it had over 4 million views. Within days, Samuel's speech swept across social media like wildfire. News anchors quoted him. Influencers posted clips with captions like, "The janitor's son who shut the world up with grace." But the most powerful reactions came from kids, those who felt unseen, unheard, uninvited. They messaged him in thousands. "I'm the daughter of a cleaner. Thank you. My brother was bullied for being poor. He watched your video 10 times. You gave my son hope again. God bless you." Meanwhile, back in Maple Creek, things were never quite the same. The school board launched a full investigation into Principal Hargrove's conduct. Parents demanded reform. Teachers who once ignored quiet suffering now actively looked for it, ready to stand up instead of stand by. Even Ava, the girl who had stayed silent that day, started a student kindness council in Samuel's name. Samuel's old classroom now had a framed quote on the back wall, "You do not need permission to rise." Samuel Jacobs. At Westwell, Samuel continued to grow, not just as a student, but as a symbol. He tutored younger students. He led school projects that focused on equity and empathy. And when he returned to Maple Creek for winter break, wearing a modest coat and a calm smile, he visited the school, not with anger, but with grace. He walked into the janitor's closet, where his father once kept a small heater and an old radio. He turned it on, hearing a faint crackle of music. He smiled. That closet was once the center of his world. Now, the world felt wide open. As snow fell gently outside, Samuel stood beside his father on the school's rooftop, both holding cups of hot cocoa. No words were spoken for a while. Then Mr. Jacobs finally said, "You changed everything, son." Samuel looked up at the sky.
No.
We did. And high above them, past the snowflakes and quiet rooftops, somewhere beyond memory and pain, the faint echo of helicopter blades seemed to whisper, "Rise."